Christopher Lee was wrong about Islam. I love the guy, and I bet you do too. I grew up watching him as Count Dooku and Saruman. He fought in World War II. He was a fencer, obviously a professional actor, and he had a successful career as a metal artist. He lived a full life. He was an amazing individual. But there are things that he was not omniscient with regard to, and one of them is this religion of so-called peace. Let's look at this popular clip and evaluate the material that he refers to that I believe has skewed his understanding.
Your personal film.
The film or the performance?
The performance, of course, for you as an actor.
Well, that's easy for me. It's a film you've never seen, unfortunately. It's a film which should be seen. All of you know that there is a nation called Pakistan. In 1997, I went to Pakistan. I spent 10 weeks in Pakistan with Indian actors, with British actors, with Pakistani actors, and I played a man called Muhammad Ali Jinnah, which is, in French you would say J-I-2-N-A-H, Jinnah. He was the founder of Pakistan, a man of great vision, incorruptible, great integrity, brilliant man, friend of Gandhi. They were both lawyers, and he founded Pakistan, and I played him in this film. And I know it's the best thing I've ever done, by a long, long way. It's a very good movie. It's a very good movie, and everybody in it is very good, and it is truthful too, historically accurate. And it was very well received in Pakistan, in the cinemas. They were full every night, every day for 3 months. It's been seen in festivals, the London Film Festival, Los Angeles, New York, Houston, Cairo, everywhere it's been seen. It's had wonderful reviews as a picture, and I must say the best reviews I've ever had in my life as an actor, but nobody will show it. They won't show it. The distributors will not show it at the moment, because they're afraid. And up to a point, I say up to a point, one can understand that. Because this is about a Muslim, Muhummad, you say, it's about a Muslim leader, a Muslim politician. He was not a fundamentalist, he was not a terrorist, he was not a man who sent people to kill other people, he was not Osama bin Laden, he was not Al-Qaeda, he did not hit the World Trade Center on September the 11th, he did not fight against Israel, etc., etc., etc. Because this is the mistake that the world makes, most people. There are 100, I don't know how many Muslims in the world, but I mean 100 million or more, over 1 billion I would think probably. And what people don't understand, I said this the other night actually, when I spoke to the audience, is that this is not the true Muslim, what is happening now, what has been happening. It simply isn't. They're a minority. And this is not the true Islam. It is not. And again, it is only a minority. And the extremists. But because this is the story of a Muslim leader, the people in the West who don't really understand and don't know about this history, they get worried, they get frightened, they think, my God, if we put this picture on the theatre, maybe somebody will put a bomb there, or set fire to the place. It's possible, one can't deny it. But for me, it's a great tragedy, and for everybody who was connected with the film, because it is a very good picture, and it is actually my best performance, no question, no question. And it's also historically true.
Before I even critique his view of Islam, let's just think a little bit about this character that he refers to. This true character that is historical. Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan. I went and I not only watched the movie that he acted in, which it was a good movie, but I also watched the documentary which was made by the same people who produced the movie. So I think I have done my research, and I enjoyed it because I'm a nerd, but I looked into it, and I want to summarize for you the life of this man so we can have a better understanding of this character who has in part shaped Mr. Lee's view. Jinnah. He went to England for education, to his father's delight, and he married to appease his mother before he left because his mother did not want him to go. And so, to kind of meet in the middle, he married a local and then he went off. And it was a child bride. A little bit of Islam for you there. And by the time he returned to India, that child bride had died. He studied law while he was in Britain and even tried to go for British Parliament. And he became westernized and was very proud of it. He finished his studies in 1986. And when he went back to India, in the wake of Gandhi's growing influence, a Hindi politician, there was a bit of a stir, and although they aligned on wanting to make a unified India at the time, there were things that started to bother Mr. Jinnah. One of them was Gandhi's referring to Jinnah as a Muhammadan, or someone of the Muslims. In his remarks, he would associate, casually, not thinking too much of it, Gandhi would associate Jinnah with Muslims. But Gandhi did not want the political field to be split in thinking that strictly on religious identity, because he started to recognize with how outright of a Hindu that Gandhi was, and how much of the people in India were Hindu themselves, this could become an issue where Hinduism becomes their identity, even in the government, so much so where removing Muslims becomes an idea that takes place, maybe not in Gandhi's head, but definitely in his followers' heads. So that's starting to stir in Mr. Jinnah's head, but he still wants to keep a unified India at the time. He got married again to, I'm not going to pronounce the name correct, but Ratanbai in 1900. Started fancying her when she was 16, and he was 38, and he married her when she was 18. She converted for him. She was actually not a Muslim, and that was controversial, and neglect of his wife that he had married eventually led to their separation before her death of a very severe illness. She was actually very young whenever she passed away. I believe she was 29. Notably, his appearance at her funeral was one of the only times he was deemed emotional by the people that saw him. He was a very stoic man. Over time, he grew more sympathetic to Islam as a religion and its political significance, and its need for an isolation with how different it was from the Hindi culture, especially with Gandhi's influence rising. His rallying call was Islam in danger. That is the phrase they got behind as they started to support Mr. Jinnah. He reverted to more Islamic dressing during this time, associating more with the people religiously as he started to agree that they needed to separate. He became their model in a sort. But in general, his daughter said that he was, quote, not a religious man, but not irreligious either. So he wasn't very passionate about Islam in the sense that, he didn't live that full Islamic life as, the Imam might want you to. But he wasn't irreligious, and it became more significant to him politically over time. I'll play a clip from the documentary just to hear a little bit more about this.
Some mullahs were suspicious of Jinnah's new commitment to Islam. They opposed the Pakistan idea because they feared it would be un-Islamic, and even issued fatwas against some League members.
They thought Pakistan, when it is established, it will be a secular state like Turkey. Because all those who are supporting this movement for Pakistan, their approach, according to them, was not really purely Islamic. It was the westernized version of Islam.
In other words, that Islam was safer within an undivided India than it was within a Muslim state.
Yes, exactly. This is what their impression was, and that's why they opposed the Pakistan movement.
So even the people that supported Mr. Jinnah, they admitted that this was not purely Islamic, but the westernized version. And so that kind of rings true through thinking about this man's life. The confidence that he placed in religious freedom and women's rights and those sort of things would not be shared by, for example, what most Muslim countries hold to today. There's really a lot of interesting moments in Mr. Jinnah's life. There was a talk he had with Gandhi where Gandhi apparently said, "You've mesmerized the Muslims," and Jinnah responded, "You've hypnotized the Hindus." So they really went back and forth, but they respected each other a lot. And I want to play another clip from the documentary that I listened to.
Then on the polling day, he asked us how the voting went. And I was very excited. And I turned around to him and I said, "It went very, very well. Main factor is, I even put in a couple of fake votes." And he said to me, suddenly, the conversation ended, stony silence. And I said, "Yes, I changed burqas, everybody wears burqas." I said, "I changed burqas 3 times to go in and give." And the polling agents were all very pro us. At which he turned around and he said, "I'm very sorry you did that, because I have no intention of getting Pakistan in that way. I want it to be a fair election. And I'm sorry you've done that. And I would like you to go back and remove those 3 votes from the voters list, because you have no right to do it."
So he was a very noble man, and he actually won 90%, the league that he ran, the Muslim League, won 90% of the Muslim vote in India. So he had a lot of favor from the Muslim population. Mr. Jinnah never really wanted to break away from India. He wanted it to be unified. But over time, as he saw that the two people could not coexist with how different they are, even in the face of him being offered to be the Prime Minister of India, he still didn't see it working out long term. And so he did push for that creation of Pakistan. He demanded that sovereign state, fully turned his back on that unified India. There were a lot of people killed as this position became clear and its implications carried out. Decisions have consequences, and he had to face those. Mr. Jinnah was 70 by the time he got his deal for Pakistan to be created. 70. He was an older man by the time this all worked out, what he had worked for so long. He took a deal in a smaller Pakistan than he wanted when it was created, but he got it. And exhausted as he was, he started building the country anyway. Tensions were high, conflict between India and Pakistan already escalating. And he recouped and rested and tried to continue on, but ultimately he did pass away quite early. To give y'all a quote of his opinion on how Islam would play out politically in the nation of, or the country of, I should say, Pakistan. "You may belong to any religion or caste or creed. That has nothing to do with the business of the state. You will find that in course of time, Hindus would cease to be Hindus, and Muslims would cease to be Muslims. Not in the religious sense, because that is the personal faith of each individual, but in the political sense, as citizens of the state." End quote. So he's saying, your religious identity in Pakistan will be separate from your political identity. And he viewed that as the place where Islam would thrive. That's not really where Islam thrives. But it's what he wanted, and it's not how Pakistan is today. Religious freedom is definitely not up there in the way people refer to that country. That's because they actually have stuck to Islam, which imposes Sharia law, which you probably well know about. And it's actually been labeled as a country of particular concern, and it is on the topic of religious freedom. So sadly, it did not stay true to Mr. Jinnah's freedom. I wish it did. But I'll be honest, that isn't what Islam is. And now we need to get back to Christopher Lee's words, because he talks about how Mr. Jinnah was not a fundamentalist. So we have to think, what makes someone a true Muslim? It goes back to the Quran. Did he have a correct understanding of the Quran and the scripture of Islam? Did his actions and opinions reflect that of the Quran? Or is it more like a liberal who appreciates and thinks he has the right understanding, but is ignorant to the dark nature of what he subscribes to? Lee rightfully points out that Jinnah was not a fundamentalist, that he was not a terrorist. You know who was? Muhammad. Let's go to Surah 424. Oh, and Muslims, if you think I'm cherry picking, please try and explain the context on any of these in a way that will explain away the obvious implication that Muhammad did spread terror and he was pretty fundamental about this whole violence thing. But yeah, Surah 424. Forbidden are married women, except female captives in your possession. This is Allah's commandment to you. Lawful to you are all beyond these, as long as you seek them with your wealth in legal marriage, not in fornication. Give those who you have consummated marriage with their due drories. It is permissible to be mutually gracious regarding the said drory. Surely Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. End quote. All-wise Allah. You gotta be lawful with all your marriages and your conduct of what you give them normally. But if it's a captive, yeah, you can just take her. Let's look at Ibn Kathir, one of their top scholars, commentary on this. How did this take place and what was the context? In commenting on that phrase, except those whom your right hand possess, Ibn Kathir says, that means except those whom you acquire through war, for you are allowed such women after making sure they are not pregnant. Imam Ahud recorded that, I'm not going to try to pronounce that name, said, we captured some women from the area of Autas who were already married, and we disliked having sexual relations with them because they already had husbands. So we asked the Prophet about this matter, and this ayah was revealed, saying you can bang them. Even the Muslim men knew it was messed up. Well, let's think about maybe that clip of how noble a man Jinnah was and how he told that lady to go back who voted wrongly and was deceitful in how she went about that behavior. Would Muhammad be noble in that way? Would he line up with Jinnah there? Well, in one of their hadiths, Sahih Muslim, 2605, book 32, hadith 6303, there's an interesting concept. It is not lawful to lie, except in 3 cases. When a man speaks to his wife to please her, when lying in war, or when lying in order to reconcile between people. Now, there was death and violence going on between the Hindus and the Muslims. Conflict stirring up as it did and constantly was prevalent between those two peoples. War would not be the craziest term, and also with Islam's constant conquest to fight the non-believers and take over as much land as they can, as they believe themselves true, and the ones that should be dominant, it is war between India and the Muslims. So, Muhammad, he totally would have been down with lying in that case and in false voting, anything to get Islam superior. They are fully equipped religiously to lie until they are on top, to pretend to be chill with the place they're living in until they are dominant. I think most of the time that plays out in that they do kind of conform, but then when they get that mob mentality, they abuse it once they have enough people to actually form a mob. Let's look at some clips from the movie he acted in and think about them in terms of Islam as well.
You call yourself Muslim and you parade your respected sister in front of crowds shamelessly?
Islam stands for equality for men and women, Maulana Sahib. And the women in the family of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, were active in public life.
Oh, they were active, all right. I'm sorry. It's bad, and I'm not going to hide it. We're going to look into some scriptures in a second. You could say they're active, but you couldn't say that there was equality and certainly not an equal idea of rights. But can we just appreciate the look, that smug look on that Muslim's face that they plastered to make him look like the ignorant one with his crazy eyes? He's looking up. He looks like he's like taking a turd. I mean, they really sell the Muslim not knowing what they're talking about every time one comes across the screen in this movie. It's definitely a tactic that shows that they don't believe those people have the right understanding, when in actuality, I think they're just showing true Islam, and true Islam just is that dumb, but they're characterizing it for what it really is and pretending that that's not the reality of the matter. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I'm sorry. We need to be honest about Islam. What did I mean that these women were active when I said that, kind of sarcastically? Sahih al-Bukhari, 5069. Ironically, the Prophet used to go around to all his wives during the day and night, and they were 11 in number. And us said we used to say that he had the strength of 30 men. End quote. So yeah, you could say they're active. Surah al-Bukhari 229. We have one of the women with the Prophet saying, I used to scrape semen from the garment of the Messenger of Allah, and he would go out to prayer in it while traces of it were still visible. Do I need to say anything? Do we want to talk about the hadith where you need two witnesses of woman to equate that of a man? Need we keep having this conversation? I'm sorry, women are not respected, and the moral conduct is not set high by their exemplary man.
Wait! Who are you? And why do you want to kill me?
You're a traitor, Jinnah. If there is to be a Pakistan, it must be a Muslim state.
Pakistan will be a Muslim state.
Yes, but with you as leader, you speak of the rights of Christians, of Hindus. You talk of the rights of women.
You are an ignorant fool. I have fought for your mother, your sister, and your children's children to live in dignity. Islam doesn't need fanatics like you. Islam needs men of vision who will build the country. Now grow up and serve Pakistan.
Yeah, okay. Muhammad's grand vision brought him a 9-year-old and his family member's adopted daughter because Allah told him so. The crazy guy is taking after Muhammad more than Jinnah is in this clip. Yeah, you might not want to admit that, but that's the reality of Islam. I'm sorry, it actually gets kind of funny, like the way they characterize him, obviously implying that that guy doesn't understand Islam, but what I see is just like, yeah, that's a Mohammedan, bro. That's actually what Islam is, and it is silly. You speak of the rights of even women, like, yeah, that's what Islam be like, bro. It's bad. And, you'll see Christopher Lee in that clip appeal to the majority versus the minority to understand what Islam teaches. I don't care if the majority of people in a given religion don't practice what their original text says. When we're defining what the religion itself teaches, I'm going to refer to their scripture and their original model man and that sort of thing. But even when we do look at popular statistics for how Islam is played out in history, you talk about the persecution of Christians and freedom of religion and things like that. Let's look over the last 100 years at some Muslim countries. Looking back to 1910, Lebanon, 77.5% of the population was Christian. Now, less than 32.4%. Iraq, 6.3% of the population was Christian. Now, less than 1%. Egypt used to be, 1910, 18.7%. Today, it's less than 5%. Syria had 15.6%. Now, less than 2%. Turkey in 1910 had 21.7% Christians as a population, and now it's less than 0.2%. This is how Islam plays out. And then if you haven't heard about it, look at what's going on in Nigeria today. It's the same thing. This is what it requires and asks for. It wants these people gone or converted, and if Islamic and reverted, killed. That's what it is. And yeah, there might be a majority of Muslims that you come across in the West that are peaceful, and that's good, and I'm glad for that. That's because they've been westernized just like Jinnah was. They're not representing true Islam. And people that are actually Muslim, they'll exploit that middle ground where you have those moderate Muslims, because moderate Islam is the grass that the snake can hide in. It's actually very true, and there's a reason such a large growth in terror attacks from Islamic organizations have carried out. It's no coincidence, it is what the Prophet taught. In the way Christopher Lee was speaking to this matter and saying that Jinnah was not a fundamentalist, he might have that opinion, but what he's admitting is that a true fundamentalist, someone who takes the Quran at its word, would be a terrorist. And you say the same thing about Christianity, and it wouldn't make sense. Like, a Christian fundamentalist, someone who takes the Bible at its word seriously, there's places where both the Quran and the Bible are obviously being analogous, but I mean, like, taking it seriously for what it is, being a fundamentalist, that's not going to turn you into a terrorist. It will for Islam. It won't for Christianity. Like, there's a difference here in these worldviews, and I'm going to go with the one that stays away from pedophilia. Y'all do what you want, but peace and pedophilia don't really go together. Just pointing that out. And this is no attack on Christopher Lee, because as you guys have already heard, I respect him a lot. And he even did admit in this clip, you do have the reasonable concern that there would be a rogue Muslim that comes and sets fire or bombs such a theater who plays a film like this. Because there's a lot of Muslims who would say Jinnah is not an accurate representation of Islam. And whenever you put him as a poster child in saying that Jinnah was right in the way this movie depicts him, that will piss off some Muslims to where they maybe would have a terror attack on such a theater. So props to him for at least admitting that much. I just think he has such a noble view of Islam that comes from Jinnah, but really that's not an accurate view of Islam. And in the end, I think we should look to the moral example of Jesus instead of the caravan robber from Arabia in the 7th century. Call me crazy if you want, but I think that that is a much better message, and that it's called the good news for a reason. Not only is he the perfect moral example, but he tells us that he did it on our behalf, and that he's willing to help us change as long as we admit that, and that he paid the debt by living the life we were supposed to live and the death we were supposed to die. Pray on that if you haven't, and read the Bible. Have a good day, y'all.